A big part of being successful at getting back into dating is you have to be open to unlocking new parts of you.
I know how to go on a few dates with somebody and then just move on. But I don't know how to be with somebody and like have vulnerable conversations and deal with insecurities on both sides and make sure that I'm being empathetic and patient and kind. What I've noticed about these personas or these different parts of me is that if they're aligned with who I am as a person, then they're actually really healthy.
Welcome to the Derelict Podcast. For the disparaged, depleted, and delinquent souls trying to find our way, we're talking about the scary part of the journey, where we don't know how it'll end. Let's be free to face our fucking failures in real time as the most unadulterated, truest version of who we are. No sugarcoating. Welcome to the shit show, you derelict.
Today we dive into the difficulty of dating, especially as derelict divorced dads. Today's episode is Failure in Dating, a divorced dad's guide. This podcast is about being in the midst of failure, not about the massive success we've had. This is not a 3-step formula that will remove all problems for your life. It's getting real with the failure we all face and learning from each other. We're in the middle of this too. Welcome.
We're going to go over how we failed at dating, what we've learned from our dumbass mistakes, getting back in the game, rediscovering parts of us, dating is ineffective therapy and why.
We're going to talk about healthy relationships too, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. We're going to get to that.
Yeah. So here's what we're not going to talk about. Tyler doesn't want to discuss the age of consent. I guess we won't ask why. Cosby still has some fans out there. And I don't want to discuss that one time in Mexico because it might give away too much about my sexuality.
Other than that, I guess all things are...
Well, here's the thing. This is not therapy. We're not licensed professionals. Some would hardly call us professionals in our day job.
Now we're going to disclaimers, huh?
Yeah. Well, no, I
this
just
is
mean
not
like,
legal advice.
No, what we're not
or financial advice either.
Okay. Or tax advice, or any sort of advice.
What else are we not? We're also not qualified to talk about other people's experiences.
It's true. And what I mentioned earlier, too, is that what this is also not going to be is it's not going to be some sort of 3-step formula, 7 steps to success. Here's how to date the most effectively. We're not dating coaches. We're really just here
Not
to talk.
yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could be, but that's a relative spectrum, right? So if somebody really sucks at dating, I could be their coach. If I don't know what that means. What else are we not going to talk about, though?
The dating spectrum is really broad. So we're basically going to kind of go from our experience, talk about kind of how we got back into it. And, you know, if you are younger and single and you never took a break from dating, then some of this isn't going to apply to you because we're coming from the context of someone who had to re-enter the dating game from a time capsule. But then a lot of this will apply to people once we get past that part.
Yeah, I think who it applies to the most is anybody that's had a long-term relationship. I don't think it matters if they're married or had a partner or lived with somebody, etc. I think that will apply a lot because it's really about getting back into the game after being in a long relationship. And I'm hoping that for the people that maybe haven't had that long relationship yet, maybe you're younger, maybe you just haven't had a lot of longer relationships, hopefully you can learn from our fucking mistakes, right? I mean, that's the whole point. I wish I had more people I could have learned from before, that one time I got married forever. So we decided to put something into the show where Tyler gets to read something that I wrote for him, and I get to read something that Tyler wrote for me. This is like your Tinder profile right here. Go for it.
Dating me is like dating a mannequin, but with less personality. Like a G-rated sex doll.
Is this also my Tinder profile or is this something else?
No, this is your Tinder profile.
Okay, great. My dating journey has been a roller coaster of emotional pegging and gaping truck stop buttholes. So true. With that, how have you failed at dating lately, Tyler? Any good stories for us? Or you want me to start? You want to start?
Man, how have I not failed at dating recently?
You can start with that too if you want. Build up your ego before you tear it down.
The failure that comes to mind recently is just in breaking up directly with kindness but directness. There's such a fine balance to that, and I fucked up on that recently and just not giving enough information, not communicating clearly enough that I wasn't interested, and I got called out. I actually learned a lot from being called out, and the person was really mature about it, and I was able to give a thoughtful response eventually, but it certainly taught me that I need to be a lot more direct a lot sooner.
The next time this happens, what do you think would be different?
I think I finally kind of realized what is one scenario that can happen when you're being ghosted. The other person just really doesn't want to make up their mind. They like you, they had a fun time, but they're not interested enough to really make an effort to continue to communicate because they're trying to figure out, do I really want this? There's red flags or there's concerns, or they can't figure out what they want and they're just confused. It has nothing to do with you. Being on the other side of the person that not necessarily ghosted, but took a long time to communicate back is because I hadn't taken the time to figure out what I wanted with that relationship. And so what I would do next time is give the person the respect to block out time to say, I need to respond in a timely manner to this. So I need to figure out what the fuck I'm doing or what I want so I can give them a response. Just don't let it, oh, I'll figure that out tomorrow. I'll figure it out the next day. It'll just go and go. And then all of a sudden you unintentionally ghosted someone.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm going to make sure I set rules for myself so I don't do again.
Brings up an interesting question I don't think I've thought of before. Do you think more of ghosting in that scenario has to do with people maybe being more passive aggressive about things and just not wanting to respond? Or do you think it has more to do with people maybe not knowing what they want?
It's one scenario of ghosting. I think both scenarios are true. Some people are just avoidant and they are so apathetic that they don't want to put the energy into giving any sort of confrontational no to someone. They don't feel comfortable being rejected and they don't feel comfortable rejecting. So they just avoid it altogether and they just basically pretend the person never existed. Yeah. So that's one scenario. The other scenario...
And maybe they just think the person's nice too and they don't want to hurt their feelings, right?
Correct. But at the same time, they're hurting it more.
Yeah, it hurts them more, 100%. I'd rather just no. Give me a yes or a no. Don't give me a maybe. Don't give me silence. That's me, at least.
And I think, so either they're afraid of being rejected or they're so unused to it that they don't know what it feels like to be ghosted.
Fair enough. And, we both live near Portland, Oregon, and let's just say that maybe the pool of attractiveness here isn't quite as high as other locations in the world. Yet some of those people still think they're 10s. It almost gives this sense of, well, I can just ghost whoever the fuck I want because I'm me.
I think that's
another
that goes beyond location. That's just a vanity problem.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, wouldn't that be a third option in that ghosting?
What is the third option?
The third option is, well, I'm so great, I don't really need to respond to you.
Yes. So it's either that apathy and vanity, avoidance, or analysis paralysis, which was mine, where I didn't know exactly what I wanted. I didn't block out the time to think about it. And then all of a sudden it had been days before I'd responded back to the person.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's my failure. What about you, Josh?
Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about this question here recently, and as of the recording of this podcast, I have been dating my girlfriend for 15 months, which is a very long time for me. And I'm in this state where if you look it up, there's been a lot of studies of how long the honeymoon period lasts, quote unquote. And I'm right in the middle of it's over, supposedly. So I've actually been thinking more about how I'm failing at being in a committed relationship. I'm not having affairs or anything, but I'm just thinking more about, I don't know how to fucking do it. I know how to go on a few dates with somebody and then just move on, but I don't know how to be with somebody and like have vulnerable conversations and deal with insecurities on both sides and make sure that I'm being empathetic and patient and kind and all those sort of things. That's what's really hard for me. And frankly, I've never really had that relationship before. I had one really long relationship where it wasn't probably super healthy the entire time. And then every other relationship I've had has been pretty short. So I feel
Josh is learning new tricks.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out like, how do I keep this going? How just am I in a healthy relationship? Okay, I'm in a super healthy relationship. I'm super grateful for it. It does not come naturally to me. We've talked about this before. Yeah. Flirting and the initial approach and all that sort of stuff comes really naturally to me. I'm pretty good at it. I can connect with people really quickly. And then ADHD kicks in and I get bored and I get distracted and I don't know what to do with my life.
Yeah, we have talked about it before because I'm the opposite. That initial stage, the flirty part is really hard for me. But once I'm in a committed relationship, I'm so much more comfortable. Not saying that the healthiness of it comes any easier to me, but it is definitely more in my comfort zone to be in that long-term relationship phase. I don't have the same makeup as you do on the initial side.
So you're saying we should swap, and you should start dating her for a while, and I'll start reaching out to your Tinder.
We should just do
matches?
that as a endless nightmare cycle. So what I've discovered is that a big part of being successful at getting back into dating is you have to be open to unlocking new parts of you. You have to be willing to rediscover it, explore, and present yourself in new ways, and then be comfortable with yourself in new ways.
Right.
All of us have different personas we put on and put off, the parts of us that we unlock.
Some of this goes to different therapies we've had and different things that we've learned about parts, work, and all that sort of stuff. But I think the easiest way for me to describe it and to think about it is that if you listen to people talk, often they say, well, a part of me wants to do this or a part of me wants to do that. And that's what I think of when I think of just dating personas or parts. So as an example, one of the things that we already talked about is the flirt. For me, it's also the show guy. I don't know why I'm going to say this on the podcast. I'll probably regret this later, but I call him Guido. And here's the reason why.
Josh is Italian.
Yes, I am half Italian. I grew up with Italian culture. Guido is obviously kind of this thought. So the way I view him is this really slick, expensive suit, the Italian jewelry, kind of that New York Italian vibe to him. He gets what he wants. He goes out. He's very likable. He's very charismatic. He is a lot of fun. People enjoy him. There's not really a whole lot of depth. It's more of just, hey, let's have fun. Let's have a good time, etc. My flirt comes out a lot. That's definitely one of my personas. How about you? What's one of yours? that
Well,
you've
flirt is one that is not a natural outcome for me. That's one that I've had to unlock. And
Right.
I tend to be more introspective and reflective. Small talk is not my strong suit, so I usually like to dive into the meat of it with people and really get to know them. And so I've had to take a step back and reflect on, all right, there's a value to small talk. There's a value to flirting. There's a value to making someone feel attracted and wanted and worthy of attention. It's this dance that I've learned to play a little bit better, still working on it. But to get to that authentic conversation, you have to throw a little bait in the water and get someone engaged to a level where they're interested in having a deep conversation.
Yeah, and I think what you brought up too is an interesting point because there's an authentic version of my flirt and there's definitely an inauthentic version of my flirt. So the authentic version is likable, fun, engaging, people enjoy that part of the flirt. The inauthentic part of the flirt could be manipulative, could be trying to do something for selfish gain, right? Could be just like hunting,
Right.
going trying to
Just
find somebody.
for the sake of it.
Yeah, just for the sake of it, just for my own ego, just for my own self-satisfaction, etc. So what I've noticed about these personas or these different parts of me is that if they're aligned with who I am as a person and my core, then they're actually really healthy. There's nothing wrong with the flirt if he is engaged in a healthy way trying to develop relationship. But if it's kind of my self-centered piece, it can be very dangerous.
Yeah, I have noticed with me, if I'm comfortable with where I'm at, then there's a good chance that the healthy parts of me are going to come out. When I first started dating, the interviewer was alive and well, and I just would start interviewing people, or the detective, figure out, all right, is this a waste of your time and my time? Let's get to the bottom of it quickly.
But there's no dancing.
There's no dancing. There's no fun. It's
Yeah.
not fun for anybody.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to be like, this may not go anywhere, but let's have fun. Let's learn about ourselves and each other and skip the detective work. That'll come in later.
I think it's really interesting because you just want to close the deal and I just want to do
Right.
foreplay.
Exactly. Serious.
Forget closing the deal. I just want the foreplay and you just want to close the deal with no foreplay. Again, another reason why we'd be good dating together.
The combo package.
Hold on a second. I'm going to tag him in.
Yeah.
Like a WWE match or something. That'd be great.
Another persona I discovered I had in me was the cruise captain.
What's that?
A lot of women will state explicitly that they want someone to be proactive, to plan the dates, to pick where you go to eat,
Right.
all that stuff. And I found I really enjoy that. Like, I can be assertive, I can be decisive, and I can plan out a really fun night.
So is that like a planner? Is that the planner piece? Is that what the cruise captain means?
Yeah, but I also have learned it's healthy to give that role up. Otherwise, you're just being controlling.
Yeah, fair enough. And you don't really give a lot of space for the other person to talk about their interests or do what they want to do or see
Yeah.
the real them, right?
But you can also engage in being assertive while also finding out what they want.
Yeah, that's true. Another one for me is the romantic, is what I'll call him. And the romantic, again, going back to that whole foreplay conversation, could just stay in foreplay forever. Just wants to romance and wine and dine and do all these sort of things, which is great. But again, if done without my core coming out, it really still just becomes kind of this self-centered feeling of, oh, wow, look at how amazing this is, etc. And then it can become about ego of like, wow, look at how romantic we are and everything else. And we're still not necessarily getting deep, which I think is interesting. And then the opposite of that is the one that just wants to, have sex with everybody. They're kind of at odds.
Yeah, well, it all comes down to aligning with your core and what you really want. And are these steps or personas you're putting on to get you to the goals that you want? And are those goals healthy? And if they are aligned with the core of who you are and what you want and what the other person wants, then you can kind of go through the phases and stages without there being any issue.
I was going to bring this up later, but I'll bring it up now because it makes me think of a couple of my roles. We talked about this before, and you've heard about this, the drama triangle that I guess Stephen Cartman came out with in the 60s. And it basically says that in every aspect of drama, there's 3 different people involved. There's a hero, a victim, and a villain. Hero, victim, and villain. And I noticed that sometimes it could be codependency coming out in this, but I can easily put on one of those roles based on who I'm spending time with. So maybe it's a situation where we're, trauma bonding. I know that's technically not the right term to use here, but let's say they went through some trauma, I went through similar trauma, and now we're, oh, great, let's both be the victims together. Mm-hmm. Or let me be your hero and help you out of that victim that you used to have, and you had a really shitty relationship, so now I'm going to be this amazing person.
I'm going to show you what a real man looks like.
With that voice, too. Absolutely. Here I am, look no further. So, yeah, I've definitely played all of those roles. I mean, obviously never the villain because clearly I'm too nice of a guy, but the hero and the victim for sure. And that just kind of brings out a bigger role for me, which is just really the insecure guy, right? With whatever's going on in my life. I either felt like I was in a relationship where there was a villain and I'm the victim, so therefore I'm going to be the victim in this new relationship, or maybe I'm going to be the hero in this new relationship. I'm going to turn the tables. Or maybe I just want to be the villain because I just feel like I was victimized in a previous relationship and I'm like, fuck everybody, I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want this time.
Whatever the case in that scenario, you're basically being a reaction to something outside of the relationship that you're bringing in, otherwise known as baggage.
Right.
And it never goes well.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, it's still not being authentic. Again, like I said before, I think I can be authentic in all of these personas. I also think I can be inauthentic in these personas. And it just changes slightly what it looks like. Again, flirt in a healthy way is great. Everybody loves that guy. Flirt in an unhealthy way, manipulative. People don't like that.
Right.
Nor should they.
Nor do you at the end of the day.
Nor do I, because
Right.
at the end of the day, I don't feel good about myself.
Right.
If that's me, for sure.
When it comes to the codependency piece, I put down the persona of the orphan being someone who, if you're looking to the relationship to nurture parts of you that weren't nurtured either in your childhood or in your last relationship, that can become unhealthy really fast. It's amazing to be in a mutually healthy, nurturing, caring relationship, but if you are drawing from a need that you haven't dealt with, that can become unhealthy real fast.
For sure. Or if you feel like you haven't gotten nurtured from your parents growing up or whatever else, then maybe you go after other parents, like your mom.
I was betting how long it would take for you to put in a your mom joke.
You didn't think I was going to get in there, though, did you? That's what she
Josh
said.
had
That's what she said.
in his notes, one of his personas is in love with Tyler's mom, as
She's a beautiful
as a
lady.
character.
She's a beautiful lady. All right. So if she's listening, though, I'm not really in love with you. Any other personas that stick out to you? I think I hit most of my... Well, I didn't hit the responsible one. Maybe that's similar to the hero for me, where I feel like somehow it's my... And this can be a codependent reaction, too, where I feel like it's my responsibility to carry the weight of the relationship. It's my responsibility to make sure that the other person's feeling okay. It's my responsibility to make sure that they are having a good experience. kind of similar to your cruise captain, but not necessarily experience-wise, more emotion-wise. Does that make sense?
The persona very similar to that I labeled was the mechanic. And I think of like the father that comes to visit and just makes himself at home and just starts fixing all this shit in your house that you didn't ask him to fix. It's like, oh, this sink faucet is loose. Here, let me get in there and figure. They just can't sit still because they just, everything they see in your house, they just want to improve in some way.
Right.
That's something that
You do in a relationship?
I don't. But in an unhealthy part of me, in going into my first longer term relationship, I had to really keep that at bay and put strong boundaries, because there would be a tendency to be like, oh, I'm going to help with this or that. And for a healthy relationship to exist, you have to maintain a strong boundary to say, like, you're your own person. You have your own problems to deal with. You deal with them however you want. It may be completely different than how I deal with them, and that's okay. And I'm not going to take that on.
Yeah, going back to the question we started this podcast with about how we failed lately regarding dating, I just responded not well, or let's say that the response was not what was expected. My girlfriend texted me something yesterday. I responded, and then basically the way that I responded, the whole thing kind of hurt her. So there's another example of failing dating. And the reason I'm bringing that one up as well is because after thinking about it and processing it, I realized that the way I responded was actually fine. I didn't feel like I owed an apology or an amends or anything. And she also agreed with me. But my past codependency, or my recovering codependency, made me want to just try to fix it. Try to go back and say, oh, well, I'm sorry that I didn't say this, et cetera, when I'm not really sorry. I'm just sorry because I want there to be no fight. And I don't want to have this be a thing. And I just want us to move on. I want us to all feel good, which is not healthy. That's not a healthy relationship. That's just me appeasing something to where at the end of the day, I feel shitty about it. She feels shitty about it. It's not really authentic. But that's how I've done the mechanic in the past, where I'll just come in and say, well, let me just fix this. Let me fix everybody's emotions that are negative in any way, or that I foresee as negative. Then everybody's just going to be happy and sing Kumbaya. And then at the end of the day, something comes up because we're not all happy. It's just been covered over, or we just moved past it and we didn't deal with it.
No, and that tends to build up and then explode later.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't relate to that at all as far as relationships go. I've never had a relationship explode. Have you? We're just doing this as a test. Like, we're just pretending that we've had failed relationships for this podcast so that it works. Right?
Just to be more relatable.
Because not everybody can be perfect like us. Absolutely. All right.
The sarcasm is thick in the air.
No, it is. Maybe this is a good time to transition to what we're already kind of talking about, and that is dating as ineffective therapy. I think we all, and I definitely relate to this, where I try to work through my own traumas, hurts, insecurities, a bunch of different things through dating, and putting other people in that process is not, the healthiest way to do it. Maybe I should go journal and meditate and do therapy instead.
Well, a lot of people use dating as therapy, and it's a train wreck. I mean, you do learn a lot, but at what expense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a book I highly recommend by John Kim called Single on Purpose, which the gist of it is encourage you to do the work yourself and not use dating as that process. Get really comfortable with yourself, and then, and only then, enter the dating world.
We'll drop the link to that here so that John can pay us a shit ton of money.
So here's the quote. It's easier to get into a relationship to fix a feeling of hopelessness or boredom, but the call is coming from inside the house. Until you resolve the disconnection with who you really are, it's going to haunt you. No perfect partner can replace that.
That's great.
I like the call is coming from inside of the house. That takes personal responsibility. Like, you have to realize there's a monster inside of you have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess where my question goes, I haven't really thought about this before our podcast today, but how do we or anyone date to work through these things that we're trying to figure out without using people as therapy? Does that question make sense? In other words, we still learn a lot from ourselves through the dating process, trying to figure out all of these things about ourselves that won't necessarily come out in therapy from my experience. Sometimes you actually have to interact with other people besides somebody you're paying to listen to your shit, which is good. But how do we do that with maybe lowering the damage of who we're hurting in the process and maybe not manipulating or using them?
I think there's a certain level of brokenness and trauma that you have a responsibility to fix through whatever means you need to, either reading, reflecting, journaling, therapy, whatever it is. If you recognize that there's things that you are not comfortable with yourself, you're not sure who you are, what you want, I think that you work on that before you jump in. And there's going to be stuff that you find that you didn't know that comes up during dating. And then you decide, is this something that's fair to continue to work on while I'm in a relationship or on the market? Or sometimes you have to make the decision to pause, either break up the relationship, pause it, or pause dating in general and go back and do some more work. I think it's a constant self-reflection to say, am I who I would want to date? Am I healthy enough to be able to be honest to who I am, my values, and be able to be honest with other people? And if you can't answer affirmatively to that, then you probably shouldn't be dating.
Yeah, it actually makes me think of, I have a message for the serial daters out there, for the people that haven't really taken a break, have gone from one relationship to another, to another, to another. And here's my message, and I'm just going to speak from the heart from my own personal experience because it was what helped me. And that is, after getting out of a very long marriage and then jumping right into a relationship that was very addictive in a lot of ways, when I finally came to see that that was not going to be a healthy relationship moving forward, and thank God she saw that as well, and we were able to agree to that together, I then chose, through wisdom of much wiser people than myself, to take a year off of dating and to work on myself during that time. I did a lot of therapy. I did 12-step. I did a lot of books. I did a lot of meditation. I did a lot of reading. I just did a lot of stuff and didn't go on a single date that entire year. And the only reason I'm saying that is not for any sort of kudos or ego or anything else. It's to say that that was the best year of my life still to this point, because I did so much growing in that. And I'm not saying that you can't do that while you're dating. I'm just saying that for me, I was at a point in my life where it wasn't going to be as effective if I was dating. So for the serial daters out there, consider it. Consider, especially if you're in a transition phase, etc., maybe it's time just to take some time off. I'm not saying a year is the correct amount of time, but maybe just set goals like you would in your personal life and say, hey, look, I want to take X number of months, years, whatever off, and I wanted to do these things. And I want to focus on these things because, frankly, for me, it was interesting because when I thought that I was ready to date again, I talked to some wise individuals in my life, mentors, call them, and I said, okay, I feel like now I'm ready to start dating again. I feel like it's been enough time. I feel like I'm ready to go. And these mentors were like, yes, you are. We agree. And that was on a Thursday. I flew down to California on a Saturday to go to my cousin's wedding and met somebody randomly and went on a date that night. And it was just funny how that happened so immediately because I was ready for it. And I was at a point where I was willing to accept whatever came into my life. Now, to make a long story short, that woman ended up being a psycho. So maybe I wasn't super ready, but
That was the universe.
But I also realized, like, we had a really nice date and then she kind of turned into a psycho and then we lost touch and everything's fine now. But it also helped me realize that she was a psycho instead of being with her for a year or something.
Yeah, if you hadn't done the work, you might not have realized that as soon.
Yeah. I mean, we went on one date and I could figure it out pretty quickly. But I felt really, really honored to do that. So again, if you're a serial dater, just consider this. Don't get defensive when you're listening to me, because I probably would have back in the day. But just consider, like, would it make sense just to pause, just to regroup, to spend a little time working on yourself and figuring out where you want to go from there?
I think now would be a good time for you to explain love addiction, since we're talking about serial dating, because that's often one of the core drivers of serial dating is love addiction.
Yeah, it for sure is. I mentioned earlier the part of me that's the romantic. I would say that he, or she for that matter, is probably the biggest part of me that would be considered a love addict or can be a love addict. And, just like addiction to anything is that you're powerless over that thing, whatever it is, and you really can't control it. It takes over you, it takes over your being, etc. So, using a simple example of an alcoholic or a drug addict, they obviously can't control it, right? An alcoholic can't go have one drink and just be fine, because one drink turns into two, which turns into three, which turns into 20, which turns into them passed out, barfing on the front lawn or whatever, right? The same thing is true for when love addiction takes over, at least for me. And that was the relationship that I had actually right after my long marriage ended, is I got into this love addicted relationship, and I was willing to do things for her that were completely against what I actually wanted to do as a core. Like, I was willing to have more kids, and I didn't want to have any more kids at the point. You know, I pictured in my head like the kids and the white picket fence and all this sort of stuff right after my marriage ended, and I literally didn't want any of those things. And still to this day, I don't think I ever will get married again. And there's reasons for that. We could have a whole podcast on that. But the point is that my love addict definitely took charge and said, oh, no. If you're romantic and you do all these things, then you'll feel complete in yourself. And if anyone is listening to this podcast that's dealt with addiction before, and you've come through the other side of it, you know that that addiction never makes you feel complete, but it always promises to. And love addiction was the same for me, just like other addictions. And I think what goes along with that too is codependency. At least for me, they've aligned, where I want to be this romantic person that has just this beautiful relationship. And then sometimes I've convinced myself that I have to be codependent to get that. In other words, I need to make sure that you're okay so that I'm okay, so that we all feel okay, so that we can have this romantic notebook type relationship, or fill in the blank, Hallmark movie, whatever.
I can relate a lot to the codependency. I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what codependency is. They think I'm an independent person. I'm not addicted to my partner, therefore I'm not codependent. But the reality of codependency is, if you are willing to compromise things like you talked about that are your core beliefs, values, or boundaries, and you find yourself struggling maintaining those boundaries and core beliefs in a relationship, then there's a good chance that there's codependency that you are struggling with. And I remember reading the book Codependent No More right after my marriage ended, and realized, holy cow, this is me to a T. Even though I consider myself an assertive and independent person, relationships change you, and unhealthy relationships change you even more.
Yeah, Codependent No More. What's her name? Melody Beattie. Available on Amazon. Melody will pay us for that.
You're going to say that after every book.
Absolutely.
Okay.
In this episode.
Okay.
Not in future episodes. Just in this one. Yeah, that was a great book for me as well. There's several others that I can't think of off the top of my head that I probably shouldn't write down. But that is a really good starting point for anybody that has felt that way. And the way that I've thought about codependency, and this is probably not the academic definition, but it is that I want you to feel a certain way so that I can feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Is that pretty close?
Yeah, and it's a reaction to feeling out of control. And codependency can turn someone who never would consider themselves manipulative into passive aggressive and manipulative and controlling. It can have incredible impact on your behavior, even if it doesn't align with who you think of yourself as a person, because it is a reaction to another person, and a reaction to you trying to get your needs met in a way that you're not able to verbalize or assert.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we might have talked about the 8 C's that Richard Schwartz came out with before on a previous podcast. But he essentially says if you're living in your true self, then you are living in one of these 8 C's. And I won't list all of them right now, but one of them is confidence. And for me, if I am acting codependent, it's the opposite of acting confident. Because I'm acting codependent because I'm insecure about how somebody's feeling, and I want them to feel okay so that I can feel okay, instead of just being confident with my true self. And one quote that I wrote down here that I really resonate with, I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, and I think at one of his events, I can't remember if it was one of his books, this is what he said, and it really stuck with me. He said, "Women love to be pleased, but they don't want a pleaser." And to me, that relates to codependency, because in my codependency, I am trying to please women. I'm trying to please them. In other words, make them okay with whatever is going on, which is fake. It doesn't actually help anything, right?
It's an illusion.
It is
you can't
100%
control
illusion,
whether
for
they're
sure.
okay with it or not.
But I try to.
Right.
It's trying to control their emotions.
And
like
that's
you said.
why codependency can make you go crazy so fast, is because you're changing your behavior to alter the behavior or the mood of someone else. And that's crazy making sauce.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. So instead of maybe love addiction and the romantic and the codependent person and the one that's all about flowers and candlelit dinners and all that stuff, what about the opposite? What about the sexaholic? What about the person that's just out there to get another name in the book?
Well, I think that can be men or women, although
Of course
it
it
tends
can.
to be
Absolutely.
right. Coming from that unhealthy place of, are you trying to get something that you're not being explicit about? Are you being open about what you're trying to accomplish, what the end goal is? Or are you offering all sorts of false personas and promises just to get to the sex?
Yeah. Isn't it trying to accomplish the same thing? If I'm trying to accomplish something by being romantic and generate these feelings that aren't necessarily there, aren't I just still dealing with some sort of insecurity because I just want to go out and have sex with a bunch of people?
Right. You got to understand your own needs, and not that we have it figured out, right? But most of that stuff comes from trying to meet needs, whether it's validation or physical gratification or something to stem the insecurity. Usually that's a signal that maybe you should take a pause, work on that, because you're only going to actually find a sustainable solution or sustainable way of meeting your needs within yourself, not in another person.
Yeah. Now, Tyler, as someone who has had way more sexual partners than myself, has that mainly been due to insecurity? It's going to be great when our kids listen to these episodes, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, my body count's pretty low. So I don't know. I don't know how else to.
So let's move from that awkward moment to how just the world of dating is right now. You know, the three things we wrote down on this are online dating and apps, multi-dating, right? Dating multiple people at the same time, having open relationships, maybe putting all of those in the same category. I still wonder with all of those things, we have such an opposite world of, I guess the opposite would be an arranged marriage, right? You don't really meet anybody until maybe right before you get married. Somebody arranges it for you. You're kind of there. You're stuck, so to speak. And there's been a lot of statistics and studies and everything else that show that they actually have usually a higher rate of sticking together than maybe people that don't do that. Now, is that a healthy marriage? I don't know. I don't know how you do a statistic on that, right?
There's even some studies that say that not only are they sticking together longer, but they're actually happy in their relationship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, there's cultures that
Well,
you
and
can't
doesn't that
judge
cut
that
out a lot of the insecurities though?
yeah.
For me, it would. Like if somebody just comes to me and like, this is who you're getting married to, and I agree with it because it's part of my culture and everything else, then I don't know, that doesn't seem like an unhealthy, chauvinistic type deal where I just have to be married to this person because I'm a woman and this guy's a man and he has all the power necessarily. It could just be, no, this is just what we do in our culture. There's something to that, honestly, that's a little appealing to me. Maybe just because I've had so many bad experiences of the opposite. What about you?
I don't think I can really speak to that. I mean, yes.
Well, I can't either.
like,
I'm just saying, is
I
it
guess-
appealing to you?
No. I mean,
Why?
I hate other people making decisions for me
Yeah, that's
most
true.
of the time.
That's
And
valid.
so just even if it works out, I would want to be able to say that I had something to do with it.
Yeah,
But
I'm
will
not
say-
an egomaniac like you, so I don't understand that.
I would say a better kind of opposite of the unending options that apps and multi-dating and stuff gives you these days. My background came from conservative religious culture that was all about purity culture and courtship. So it was highly controlled by either church or parents to say, you don't mess around finding out what you want with other people. You have essentially a standard given by the church or the parents or their interpretation of the religious text. This is a standard that's objective of what a good partner is. And it's not arranged, but you're guided to basically a very focused skip to the end to this courtship to marriage where there's no fun flirting. There's no
Right.
getting to know the other person in that way. It's more, the word that would be used is intentional, but I feel like it was more controlled than intentional.
Yeah.
That's the background that I reject in terms of like, there's something to be said for making some mistakes and finding your way when you're young or when you're old. Yeah, as long as you're like we talked about within healthy boundaries, there's still some exploration that needs to happen, and discovering who someone is and if they're a good fit, and learning the skill of being able to hold relationships loosely, not to throw them away, but to say there's a time frame for a relationship and it's okay for that relationship to end.
Right. It's true.
And that doesn't mean that it was a waste of time. Everyone learned something. Everyone got something out of it. And then it's time to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, true. For a good resource on courtship, check out I Kiss Dating Goodbye by Joshua Harris, available all of the resellers.
Who now is on an apology tour for his book.
Yeah, actually, let's bring that up. Sure. So then he made a movie several years after he made the book. And basically, the main message of the movie is like, I fucked up church culture. This is not what my intention was with this book. And now I regret a lot of what I did, which was fascinating, coming from a guy who probably went through a similar process to us, from what I could tell from his story, and then came around the other side of it after a lot of learning, like, oh man, I had a lot of ego and insecurity and everything else that went into making this book that really like changed a lot of Christian culture on how they view dating and courtship. I think it's fascinating. I mean, in all seriousness, sure, read the book and watch the movie, and I actually think it's kind of fascinating.
Agreed.
But that being said, you're absolutely correct. And I think that that's also appealing to me. I agree with you. I do actually, in all seriousness, like being in control of things as much as I don't like to admit it, because I want to control not admitting it as well. But there is definitely something appealing about courtship, about doing it in a very methodical, focused, intentional way versus just jumping on Tinder and whoever looks pretty, let's just go for it and see what happens.
Yeah, I think there's a balance to be found in between those two. But it all comes down to, are you a healthy person? Are you being honest to the core of who you are? And if you are in that place and you are intentional and you don't want to mess around with trying to date 100 people to find out what you want, that's not a bad thing. Especially after you've done a little bit of dating, the expectation for all parties is that you kind of have an idea of what you want, both in who you want and what you want out of the relationship. And if you're trying to figure that out on the fly, it can get messy.
Yeah. So maybe that's a good transition for us to talk about healthy relationships. You know, we said at the beginning that one of the things that we wanted to talk about is healthy relationships, and whether that is even something that's doable, frankly. Like, are they possible? What is a healthy relationship? You wrote down this quote from Codependent No More that I think is a good kind of entree to this. It says, "We are lovable. Even if the most important person in your world rejects you, you are still real and you are still okay." And I love that, because if I could just believe that fully, I'm walking into any relationship or even any new interaction in a very healthy way, right? If I'm feeling confident in myself, and that's not a egotistical, look at me, narcissistic sort of way. It's just, no, this is who I am. I'm lovable who I am. These are the things that are good about me. And therefore, there will be somebody that appreciates that. And there will be people that hate it too. But if I can just stick to what I actually am, then that's the start, right? I mean, isn't this all about insecurity and dealing with that and actually being ourselves?
I mean, and it's no fun dating someone who doesn't believe they're lovable.
Definitely not.
It's
exhausting.
That. You're right.
I mean, it's exhausting having friendships like that. I go in and out of friendships like this of people that are just, Eeyore maybe is a good definition. And they're just, everything's bad and everything's depressed. They're not really into themselves and they don't really like themselves and they pretend like they do, but it's fucking exhausting being that person's friend too, because at a certain point it's like, okay, I can continue to try to encourage them or I can just give up. And after a while, for me, frankly, and maybe I'm just the only impatient person in the world that does this, but after a while I'm like, fuck it. Fine. If you want to think that you're a piece of shit, think you're a piece of shit, because I'm tired of fucking trying to make you feel anything else.
Well, because it's not your job. And
it's not.
And it's
absolutely
never
not.
But
I feel like I want to do it still. Right. I'm their friend and I care about them and I love them.
Sometimes there's the expectation that you do. And that's where it gets exhausting.
Yeah, for sure.
But also, as two people who've experienced their fair share of insecurity, it's exhausting to be that person. Exhausting. Yeah. It's exhausting to question whether you're lovable or not.
It is.
But that's not fair to put onto someone else.
So I wrote this question down in this section because I'm curious. Maybe you have an answer for it, maybe you don't, but maybe it's just one we can discuss. And my thought often comes to how healed or how healthy do you have to be, or what's ideal to get back out there, right? So we go back to kind of what I was encouraging the serial daters before, and maybe they're healthy, maybe they're not healthy. My guess is if you're a serial dater and you've never spent any time just pausing and working on yourself, you're maybe not super healthy, but maybe you are. I don't know. Not mine to judge. But how do you figure that out? How do you figure out, okay, now I'm healthy enough to get back out there, or at least I feel healthy enough to make an effort? Is there some sort of...
Well, you did it through asking the people who knew you really well, right?
true.
So that's how you did it. You waited, and then you asked for feedback from people that you had been honest with about where you were and what your
And they were
struggles
honest
were.
with me, more importantly,
Yeah.
too. They weren't just telling me, oh, yeah, you deserve everything. You know, all that bullshit that we hear in society today, right? Like, you deserve it, and you're a princess, and you're skinny, even though you weigh 500 pounds, you know, all that sort of stuff. Like, no, I need somebody to tell me the truth. Yes, I just fat shamed somebody. Sorry. But I need people to tell me the truth.
Right.
I don't want somebody just to be like, oh, yeah, you're healthy, go for it. Because then guess what? I'm not going to be healthy. I'm going to go for it, and then I'm going to cause more destruction. That's not what I want. I want somebody that's going to help me realize, yes, you are, yes, you're not. But is there any other answer to that besides asking people that are wise that know us?
It depends on what your blind spots are and how you handle those, right?
Well,
So-
I don't know what my blind spots
Yeah.
are. Isn't that the definition of a blind spot?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay.
But I just mean, if you were recognizing that you're going from unhealthy relationship to unhealthy relationship, you have a blind spot. If you can't pinpoint what it is, like I was shocked my last long-term relationship at the end of it, how I ended up in a similar spot and repeating some of the same mistakes I thought I'd learned from. So it was a cue that I had to take a break and focus on myself and go back to learning some lessons again, because I recognized that I had blind spots that I thought I'd worked on that were still alive and well. And they were blind spots because I thought I had progressed, and I had progressed, but the mind wants to go to what is comfortable, and it can't
Right.
determine the difference between what's recognized and comfortable and what's healthy.
That makes me think of patterns, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, and I'm sure this is true for everyone, if I have even multiple dates in a row with different people, or multiple relationships in a row, or multiple anything in a row, and there's a pattern with those, that's probably a good indication that maybe I should pause and address the pattern. Like, why is it that every woman that I go out with does this specific thing? Well, maybe it's not the women I'm going out with. Maybe it's me.
Yeah,
Maybe it's something I need
Yeah.
to work on and figure out, well, why do I keep attracting the same person? Like I have this friend who I will not mention name, but I just got rid of 50% of them, often gets into these relationships where the guys do the exact same thing over and 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 over again. And I've tried to tell her as gently and politely as I can, which doesn't come naturally to me. Are you seeing the fact that there's a pattern with all these guys? Like, there's something within her that is attracting the same type of guy that's doing the same type of thing. So maybe, I don't know, pause, work on yourself, deal with that, and then maybe you won't attract the same guy again. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah. So it's recognizing the patterns, but also in that scenario, there was feedback from a friend, right? And whether she listens to that or not, it's hard to recognize those patterns on your own. It's
Yeah,
a lot
true.
easier if you have friends to be honest with you, but you also can take the time to self-reflect, to read, to whatever you have to do to look at the patterns yourself. And I think taking the time, even while you are dating, taking time to reflect on what is happening, what am I getting out of this, what am I not seeing, that is extremely productive.
There was a situation that arose the other day, and I called a friend about it. And I was just kind of venting and saying what was happening, etc. And he asked me what I thought was a really great question. And he basically said, well, what do you think is healthy in that situation?
Huh.
It didn't make me defensive, right? I was very open to it. And it actually just had me pause for a moment and be like, oh, interesting question. Because I was so sure on what I thought was healthy. And it was a great way of like breaking my pattern for him to be like, but what do you think is healthy? He wasn't offering advice. He wasn't saying that's not healthy. He wasn't saying anything else. It just broke the pattern in my mind enough to where I was totally for sure that I knew what the pattern was, that then I had to stop, pause, and say, oh, maybe that wasn't the pattern. Interesting. Just that question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
It was.
So to answer your question of how do you know if you're healthy enough to get back out there, I think it's a combination of feedback from other people and just self-reflection. for you to make that definition. Everyone has a different definition.
Yeah.
Let's talk about boundaries.
What up?
So when you're coming from any history of codependency or insecurity, which most of us have some aspect to it, one of the fun things you have to deal with when you're dating is boundaries. And that can be boundaries with yourself and boundaries with other people. But I think it starts with boundaries with yourself.
I hate to sound too much like the way that I was raised, but the other thing that is helpful for me in this and might be helpful for the listeners, be really careful not only who you're listening to. I don't just mean friends, but I also mean media. I mean music. I mean everything. Because until I really owned the fact that there was a part of me that could be addicted to love, there was a part of me that could be codependent, I didn't hear any of that shit in music, TV, shows, everything. And it's everywhere in our society.
It's hard to hear any sort of love song that isn't unhealthy. Like there's so many songs that are about surrendering yourself to someone else for that person to complete your missing part,
100%.
to the
Your
missing
soulmate,
puzzle piece.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the romanticized version of love that ends up in a unhealthy nightmare, right?
Yeah.
But that's what we're promised that love can provide, and that doesn't come from another person. You got to figure that out yourself.
And frankly, for me, that's me having unhealthy boundaries with myself. I'm expecting that somehow this song or Hallmark movie or culture or whatever of codependency, love addiction, whatever, is actually going to complete me. But the only thing that completes me is me. Is me actually living my true self and my authentic self with me and, you know, whatever I see as spirituality and God and everything else. That's what completes me, not some other person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I'll say about boundaries that I've learned over the years, and again, I'll plug a book here because it's the most obvious book to plug. It's a book called Boundaries. I don't even know how old it is now, 30 years, 40 years, something like that, by Cloud and Townsend. And it's kind of like Chicken Soup for the Soul in the sense that they made a boundaries for everything. Right. So like boundaries in work, boundaries in dating, boundaries as a parent, boundaries, blah, 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 blah. But if you're new to this whole concept, I would just go back to the original. It's just called Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend. Now, I will add a little bit of a disclaimer. It does come from religious context. So when I've encouraged people to read this before, I will just add the disclaimer, just mind you, they're coming from kind of a religious, conservative Christian viewpoint. So I think there's Bible verses and stuff in there. So if you can look past that, if that's not your belief, I think that the content of it is still extremely, extremely good. And one of the very first things that I learned from boundaries was actually from my therapist back in the day. And what I learned about boundaries is that the reason boundaries exist, or the reason that you set boundaries with somebody else that you're in a relationship with, is to enhance the relationship. They're never supposed to be punitive. They're never supposed to attack somebody. They're never supposed to harm someone. They're simply, I need to set up this so I can stay my true self, and then you stay your true self. And it's not me controlling you. It's just, I need this in order to make sure that I can stick with my true self.
I like to think of boundaries as a roadmap to success for the relationship. Without a roadmap to success, that relationship isn't sustainable. And so identifying those boundaries that will make it successful, it's helpful for both parties.
Yeah, absolutely.
But boundaries can become the scapegoat as well. So I've
sure
heard people learn the word boundaries without actually doing the work, and be like my kids have started doing that. Like, this is my boundary. And it's like, that's just an arbitrary rule you've made up that's either punitive or a control measure. So it's very important to understand what a real boundary actually is.
Yeah, and I've been in relationship, whether it's romantic or otherwise, with very controlling, narcissistic people that have used boundaries as in, well, you will do this, otherwise you're not respecting my boundary. Right. And then it becomes very punitive of like, well, now I'm going to hurt you because you didn't. Well, that's not the point. The point is, I love you, you're my friend, or I love you, you're my romantic partner, etc. I'm setting up this boundary to hopefully make our relationship better, not worse.
It's not just an arbitrary ultimatum.
No, absolutely not.
But at the same time, when I was trying to set boundaries in an unhealthy relationship, and I was in a relationship with a boundary breaker, I was constantly faced with the challenge of what happens if the boundary isn't respected.
Consequences. Boundaries always have consequences.
Right. Yeah. And then I didn't have the buy-in, the strength, the understanding, the skills to hold those boundaries. So that's a great part of that book, is talking about like, how do you actually hold the boundaries? And at some point you have to be willing to let the relationship go if the other person can't respect the boundary.
And also, which both of us have experienced this in different areas of our lives, the other part of boundaries and the other part of that book, which I thought was really helpful, is how do you have boundaries and consequences for somebody who doesn't respect them? So I can still have boundaries for somebody that's not on board with having those boundaries, and then I have to choose what I want to do about that. So like, one of the easiest ways that I implemented this when I was first learning about boundaries was, if I was in a conversation with somebody I'm in a relationship with, I would try to set a boundary of like, hey, I'll have this part of the conversation, but if it goes to X or Y or Z, my boundary is I need to do something about that. So maybe I need to walk away from the conversation. Maybe I need to take a pause, but it had to be something that I had control over. I couldn't control them.
Right.
Because if they don't want to respect my boundaries, that's up to them, but I still have a choice. So if I have a boundary of, hey, we're going to have this conversation, but if you go into talking about consent culture, I'm going to stop recording with you, as an example,
Sure.
then that would be a boundary. And I'd be like, okay, great. Then I'm just not going to record anymore. Now, that might hurt your feelings, etc. But like, you already know it. We talked about it. So I need to just walk away because that's what I need for my own boundary to make sure that I'm healthy.
But after you've spent time practicing boundaries in a healthy way, not as a control measure or ultimatums to control other people, but just to control your ability to be your own sustainable true self. Once you've spent some time doing that, you can start recognizing that in other people. And you're like, oh,
True.
You set really good boundaries. That's really attractive. And when they set boundaries with you, instead of overreacting or being defensive, you welcome it and you are attracted to that. And healthy people are magnets for other healthy people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, for sake of time, maybe we'll do another podcast on this. Let's do a little bit of a summary from just a few things. I just want to start that process by just talking about a few of the resources that we mentioned again. And again, we will put links here as well. There was that book, Single on Purpose by John Kim, which talks a lot about basically what you want to believe about yourself and whether it's about you. There's the book Boundaries.
I'm going to interrupt you right
Go
there.
ahead.
One more fantastic quote from that book.
Sure.
Everything ends and begins with what you believe about yourself. What you believe will determine where you will go and who you will become.
Fantastic. I love that. So there's John Kim, Single on Purpose. The other book that we just were talking about is Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend. Again, if you are new to the area of boundaries, I would just start with their original groundbreaking book from 30 or 40 years ago. We also talked about Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. I've listed a couple quotes from Tony Robbins. We talked about the drama triangle. I would look that up. Stephen Cartman, the hero, victim, and villain. That was Carpman, not Cartman from South Park. Now, as always, we really appreciate all of you for listening and supporting the podcast. Of course, we would ask you to subscribe if you haven't already done so, rate, review the podcast, and tune in for next time. I think we're going to address this topic a little bit further because there's several things we didn't get to. Until next time, this has been the Derelict Podcast. We appreciate you being willing to being beat down, burned out, and a fucking negligent bastard like us. We are letting go, loosening up, and facing our failures in real time. We're so glad you were here to join us. Until next time,